All right. Are you still continuing to tithe today? Has your preacher got you under that yoke of bondage, putting that guilt trip on you, claiming that you have to tithe? And he's going over there to Matthew chapter 3. Not Matthew, Malachi chapter 3. Well, I tell you what, I heard enough of it growing up through the denominations and even a non-denominational church in Clarksville, Tennessee. Matter of fact, it's the biggest non-denominational church in Clarksville, Tennessee. They still over there teaching that. Just can't get the word tithe out of their mouths, which does not align with Scripture, right? For us today, and what I'm talking about is let me just break the tithe down for you and tell you why you need to not continue to listen to your preacher when he's asking you to pay tithes, right? Tithes has nothing to do with us. It was only about the nation of Israel. That's how they paid their taxes, right? So next time your preacher says, I need you to tithe, ask your preacher, to whom is being spoken to? At what time is it being spoken? And who was that tithe for? That was a tax. It's just like we pay taxes today. That's how those who owned land within the boundaries of the nation of Israel, and they had agriculture, crops, and produce, right? That they grew on their own land. That's how they paid taxes. They paid it with that. And what I'm talking about, so you got three different ones, right? You got the Levitical tithe, you got the welfare tithe, and you got the festival tithe. The Levitical tithe, that was 10% of their crops and their livestock. And you can find that out. So I'm going to try to keep this video short, but you can find that out in Leviticus chapter 27. I'll read a couple of these to you. Chapter 27, verses 30 to 33. And then you got the welfare tithe and the festival tithe. So I'm going to talk about the Levitical tithe first. Leviticus chapter 27, verses 30 to 33. And all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's. It is holy unto the Lord. Verse 31. And if a man will at all redeem aught of his tithes, he shall add thereto the fifth part thereof. And concerning the tithe of the herd or the flock, even of whatsoever passeth under the rod, the 10th shall be holy unto the Lord. You can find Jeremiah chapter 33, talk about that. Verse 33. He shall not search whether it be good or bad, neither shall he change it. And if he change it at all, then both it and the change thereof shall be holy. It shall not be redeemed. I'll read verse 34 just for sake, because that's the end. These are the commandments which the Lord commanded Moses for the children of Israel in Mount Sinai. Like I said, that's the Levitical tithe / taxes. Welfare tithe. That's for the poor and widows of Israel. Now we'll flip on over to Deuteronomy for these next two. Deuteronomy chapter 14. Again, that's Deuteronomy chapter 14. All right. That's going to be verses 28 through 29. That's got the welfare and the festival, right? And the festival is Israel's festivities, right? Okay, again, that's Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 28 29. At the end of 3 years, thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase the same year, and shalt lay it up within thy gates. And the Levite, because he hath no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come, and shall eat and be satisfied, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thine hand, which thou doest. So that's the welfare tithe and tax, right? And your festival tithe. So, which I can go back up and just give you some. Let's go back up into verses 23 through 20. Let's go 23 through 26 as well. I don't want to leave those out of there. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in thy place where he shall choose to place his name there, the tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thy oil, and of thy firstlings of thy herds, and of thy flocks, and thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there, when the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind up the money in thine hand, and shalt go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatever thy soul desireth. And thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household. All right. Well, we'll read verse 27 so I can just close it all in. And the Levite that is within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he hath no part nor inheritance with thee. All right. So if you can show me just one verse that tithe for that nation applies to non-Jews, please share it in the comments section. In Acts chapter 15, those Jews were attempting to put Paul's converts under the law, right? And that's a result of verses 28 and 29 and in that chapter I just read you right there. So, look, if your preacher's still using the word tithe, he needs to switch his word to giving, right? So Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 through 8, that you give not grudgingly or out of necessity, right? You give out of the abundance of your heart, right? So if that tithe were for us today, nobody would be able to fulfill that tithing requirement, right? Because you don't live within the boundaries of the nation of Israel. You're not a Jew under the 600 and however many points of law. You're not in prophecy. You're in a time of grace. So all of those things, right? And like I said in the beginning, that tither, those folks that were paying taxes, they had to own land. They had to own land within the boundary of the nation of Israel. And then you can go talk about, I believe Numbers chapter 18 talks about the tithe never being brought to the church, right? It was always brought to the tribe of Levi's. It was given to those priests, and then it was given to the tribe of Levi's. Then they would give a portion of that. They would give a portion of what those who own that land gave up. Then they would give that to the priest. So Nehemiah talks about it as well. The tithes to the house of God. That was just the order. That was how God ordered it to be collected, right? So hopefully you guys got a little clarity out of that, right? I can go into multiple other verses, but hey, at the end of the day, those commandments, the tithes, that was never meant to us. It only applied to landowners and herdsmen who lived inside that nation of Israel, right? Who owned land. Malachi chapter 3 was for that specific nation. And that was for their national budget, right? So that's how they had to do things, just like we do things today. Not saying that it's legal that we need to pay taxes on our income, but that's exactly how things operate in our nation as well. But you're not a Jew. You never lived within the boundaries of the nation of Israel, so you shouldn't be paying tithe. Grace and peace.